Hey everybody, Keisha here, and today I am here with my friend
Jennifer Guskin,
and we need your help. We are right now working on advocacy for combating human trafficking. And here's why. So we'll give you a little bit of background of our story and why we're doing what we're doing.
I was adopted as an infant by a couple who sold me throughout my childhood. I have been to Epstein Island and on multiple Lolita Express types of flights as a child. After I went public, Child Protective Services opened a substance-exposed newborn case, even though all tests came back negative, and they told me that if I wouldn't stop posting on social media, I would never see my daughter again. I started to connect how I was adopted as an infant and then sold throughout my childhood, how many other children who have been through the adoption, foster, and CPS pipelines have also been trafficked to Epstein's Elk.
And as many of you guys know already, based on the work that we do at the CARES Project, I'm an American Indian born in Canada under the Jay Treaty. My father and I were exposed in the improper contagion mitigation for the COVID pandemic in early 2020. As a result of this, I lost everything: a house, cars, corporate assets, jobs. Bank accounts were shut down in Canada, and I fled to the US as an American Indian, fully documented, and was trafficked by rogue agents in ICE and other agents in the government, and forced to live with single American men. I was even imprisoned for 7 months initially, and then trafficked throughout the states. Put on full surveillance tracking and wasn't allowed to leave the city, house, or state without permission, or work without permission. And that happened for many years, and I was on and off the streets because of that, and in and out of shelters. And that is just a small example of what many go through in this trafficking system, be it the family courts or otherwise. So that's why the CARES Project will be going to DC to speak with representatives and do live reporting. We're also going to be in contact with other families who are dealing with human trafficking, and through the CPS courts or through any other means, lesser versions of trafficking, and doing reporting on them live and otherwise. We will also be working on, we ultimately want to shine light on what's going on with the trafficking here in the US. And we also want to meet with various agencies in DC, and we'll be going back and forth for training sessions and other things so that we can be better equipped to help people deal with resolving some of the issues that we're seeing. We will also be putting forth petitions in government to help people get justice, and that's something that we have been working on already so far. We have some petitions that have recently been filed in the state of Colorado, Michigan, Texas, and Arizona, and we will be continuing.
But we can't do this on our own. We will be traveling to events and training courses, as well as DC on a consistent basis. We also have to get acceptable equipment, such as computers, cameras, interview gear, etc. There will be other miscellaneous costs that would also be like gas, food, and rooms if necessary.
So that is why we are working towards combating human trafficking, and that is exactly why we need your help. We cannot do this alone, and most what the CARES Project does is on its own dime. And so we do love and appreciate each and every one of you that support us and all the work that we do. As many of you know, we also live stream on Lindell TV every day. And everything we do, like I said, is on our own dime. So we appreciate all the love and support and all the people who do donate. And we would very much love and appreciate that still. Thank you everybody for your time and considerations. And thank you for all the support. And we will catch you guys in the next one, and hopefully we might see you guys in the future and come across you and maybe be able to do some great things together.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CARES Project podcast. Today we have Ariel Acevedo. I hope I said it right.
Yep.
Okay, well, I got one right. And yeah, she is a birth keeper studying to be a midwife and a Christian, and has decided to go down the natural route. And we're going to hear a little bit about her story. And of course, we have Stephanie Henson coming back to host with us today. And so, can you introduce yourselves to our audience, please, Ariel?
Yeah. Hi. My name is Ariel Acevedo. I am a Florida birth keeper. Um, my story kind of started, as most do. I was severely abused through the obstetrical system in a hospital here in Orlando, Florida, not once, but twice. And I my last birth was a transfer birth, but the midwifery care that I received from my birth team revolutionized how I view birth as a whole. I was already a student of alternative medicine, and I'm alumni from Everglades University, so I have a really steady background in alternative medicine and natural health as a whole. I wasn't sure what to do with my bachelor's degree as I was finishing it was when I got pregnant with my son, and the midwifery care blended with kind of the natural life I was already leaving or leading and kind of blended. And I realized I was very heavily devoted to this field, and I only want to protect the mothers that are pregnant and they are facing challenges with their providers and how they view their birth and how they want to birth on their own terms. So a lot of my where I'm coming from and where I am now comes from literally experience, just not having adequate care while I was in the hospital with my two children. So preventatives are great, and I
I
have a moral obligation to women now.
just have a question because I'm a man, and I mean, birth is something that I don't know anything about other than seeing my children being born. So, there's some questions. When you said abused in the hospital, like what happened? Like, is you think that you would want to go to a hospital to get looked after? What did they do wrong?
Looking back, it took some time to piece the puzzle together because when you're in labor land, you're not really cognizant and you're heavily relying on those around you. With my daughter's birth, her head presentation wasn't presenting how it should have been, which is OP. We want occiput, baby facing down, head is straight down, and chin is tucked in. My daughter wasn't doing that. And because I was under anesthesia, they were having a hard time maneuvering me around. Looking back, I could literally, I could have told, I wish I could tell myself like to ask for better support to have me in certain positions, because it ended up landing as cesarean. I was in labor for, I want to say, over 50 hours, I believe. It was very tedious, and I was induced when I shouldn't have been. It was not medically needed. They were worrying about the placenta expiring. I was 41 weeks. We all know that due dates are just kind of guesstimate dates, they're not always concrete. But they kind of coerced me. They were like, you should do this. You want that you're done. I was done being pregnant, and I was 20 years old and I was following instruction. So looking back, I wish I could just tell myself, like, hey, ask to be put into flying cowgirl, or, ask to be put on your hands and knees with nurse support. They didn't offer me that 8 years ago.
Oh,
Now, the birth with my son was at a different hospital,
what?
wasn't at a
What?
resident
One
hospital.
second. Remember, you're
Okay.
talking to. There's some men in
Okay.
the audience,
Okay.
and
Sorry.
we. I'm like hearing stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. So you got to explain to me
Okay.
like I'm a 5-year-old, right?
Okay.
So when you're talking about her head wasn't properly, like it was supposed to be tucked down kind of like this, but it wasn't, and so she
It
wasn't.
was,
It was kind of sideways, or how?
yeah.
Explain. Okay, so
Asymptotic. It was cocked to the side a little bit, and in the woman's pelvis, there is enough space for the baby to come through, but
yeah,
not if the head is not presenting correctly. Presenting means
yeah,
how.
it wasn't positioned right so that she would
Yeah,
come out. So
yeah.
we, so then, so she was stuck, and then they had to go ahead, and they just because you were under anesthetics and so forth, that you were not able to be positioned properly for your daughter to come out, so they had to then said we need to do a C-section.
hmm
Okay,
a skilled midwife in that situation would have put me in the proper positions, but they did not. They and they were failing to tell me, when they were administering new medication. I was
what what
under
what
pitocin, and
what,
it
what
was
they did. they didn't tell you when they were giving you more medication?
No, so my body wasn't tolerating it and I didn't know what was going on. And
So
Pitocin's a hard drug.
Yeah.
It can be a lot on the body.
And for the baby, I found out for the baby as well that Pitocin actually causes the contractions to get more intense, where it actually is squeezing the baby tighter and actually creates more distress in the baby when they use the Pitocin. That's what I've been learning through
but
my research.
the fact that they're giving you drugs and not telling you, this is a big problem. Like, they're giving you drugs in a hospital and they're like not telling you. That's bad. You
Yeah.
shouldn't do that.
I was 20 years old without any of the knowledge that I have now, you know?
Nope.
I was
None of us have this knowledge because we're not taught this in school. These are things that I feel like homeschooling should be taught about childbirth, right? So that way when we do decide to have babies, or we should be educated enough, but the hospitals aren't being educated enough, and neither are we, I feel like.
They don't teach you that stuff in school. The parents should talk to their kids about that. Like, I mean, who's going to be better able to tell you? Someone who's never had a kid, because some of those teachers don't have kids. But your mother, I mean, should be able to tell her daughter, well, look, man, this is how it is.
These mothers aren't educated either because they're not, like I'm sure Ariel will say, that we are not being taught the proper way to birth our babies. The hospitals, even for me, I had a very traumatic birthing experience where it also ended up in a C-section 2 months early because of what the hospitals did. They are doing the opposite of true health. That's what I'm noticing, the same thing as Ariel when it comes to these hospitals. They are not taking the proper precautions and care when it comes to the birthing. These midwives are not being trained properly on proper birthing positions, on how these drugs affect our body when they do induce us, how they affect our babies. I mean, the epidurals, all of that. There's damage that I had a damage done to my spine from the epidural because I bent back the wrong way. And again, I didn't even have an option. They just came in and said, we're doing a C-section. And I had 20 minutes to mentally prepare for this. So these hospitals, like I said, what they're doing is what I've been noticing. I'm sure Ariel, they are doing the opposite of true health. And it's not conducive for parents to be having birth hospitals anymore. Home birth or birthing centers, even birthing centers are kind of going more towards the mainstream Western medical, I've been noticing, where I can't even trust birth centers anymore. More and more parents I'm noticing are turning to home births because they are doing their own research and finding out what the hospitals are doing isn't the correct way.
So okay, Ariel, you were 20 at your first experience with what was going on with your daughter, right? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
And then so you had another experience with your next child?
Yeah. My labor was a little more complicated. I had a premature rupture of membranes, which essentially means my water broke prior to true labor. So my midwife, I love her to death. She's amazing. She's located in DeLand, Florida. She, instead of letting the Florida limit for ruptured waters without true labor starting is 12 hours, but she let me stay at home for 24 until she finally said, okay, this is kind of out of my scope. And she wants to keep her license. So she had to transfer me. But also, in the same breath, I'm glad they did because my contractions were a minute apart and I wasn't dilated at all. So my body was already in distress. It was the hospital did their best, in my opinion. That hospital isn't a resident hospital, but there are certain things that they gave me Pitocin when I asked not to have Pitocin. And that's what caused my son to go into fetal distress and his heart deceleration started. We were looking at like 60 beats per minute. That's cutting it very close. Now, given all Dopplers are very different and can be inaccurate, but it was like that for a full hour. And my body was just kind of telling me like, all right, like you're exhausted. You've been doing this for 3 days. Let's just get the baby out and then we'll deal with it later. And, I'm looking back, I'm like, that birth, there wasn't much I could do. We tried all herbal interventions to get me dilated. I was just more so upset because they administered PIT when I really, really, really did not want it. And all it did was cause me a lot more pain. Pitocin contractions are a whole other beast. They don't sometimes for me, they make them inconsistent and harder. They're not, it's not like it's helping, for some moms it does. For some moms, it doesn't, and both times Pitocin just completely, wrecked me, and I had to deal with the consequences later of having, PPA and PPD, and trying to like navigate that, getting all those drugs
Okay,
flushed out of my system.
can you translate that into man speak? PPA,
Postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression, they
right?
are risks that come with Pitocin, because Pitocin is synthetic oxytocin, so it's screwing with the hormonal exchange in your body between you and yourself and you and your baby. Now, yes, some women have positive experiences, but it's not every woman, like me and Stephanie. Stephanie, you've had Pitocin. I'm sure it feels like
I didn't have
it's
the Pitocin, I just had epidural.
you just
My
had
sister did.
epidural.
I just said, yeah, because they
Okay.
came in 2 months and did a C-section just because I had high blood pressure.
I get
Okay.
I got a question, right? Is I mean, what did they tell you why you didn't dilate? Because like I mean, there should be a reason why, right? Did they figure out why?
The cervix is not a crystal ball. It's its own function, and it's hard to make a proper diagnosis in the midst of a very hard labor. I think I may have some kind of like pelvic floor issues I need to get addressed with a therapist to see why that didn't happen. My biggest guess is from like the previous birth, the trauma of that. It was 5 years prior. Truthfully, I have no idea why my water broke. I was also living in a very stressful environment. I didn't feel too safe anyway in the house with, my domestic life. So there was a lot of factors going in, but I truly have no idea why my cervix didn't dilate. It was such a fluke, but I have seen plenty of births, and I'm not like bearing witness completely, but I've talked to many women who have had their waters broken upwards like a week, and then they go into labor. But my midwife just could not risk that. I was contracting a minute apart. I was freaking out. Like I could not get myself to gather myself. My midwife did the best she humanly could, but when your contractions are a minute apart and you're on the hands and knees crying and in guttural and the most animalistic tone, it's like, it felt like transition when you're, in your transition phase of labor where baby's about to come and you're meeting them, but I wasn't dilated. So there wasn't, there's not much I needed the anesthesia at that point.
Well,
So they tried in good faith to do everything they could to get him out at home. It just wasn't happening.
well, like just the thought that came to my mind is your cervix it's a muscle, right? And it dilates because it relaxes. Like I've watched, I mean, both of my daughters being born, and I was like, okay, I see how that works. Because you're like, how does a baby? You think about how a baby comes out, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. And so, like, there's obviously something that interfered with the relaxing of the muscle for it to dilate. And so you would think that they would try to figure out, because if it was something that happened, that there was something that was there, it would make sense if they could look at that to make sure that you don't have that issue again, because you don't want to go through that again. I'm not a doctor, but I mean, these are just questions that come in my mind.
Yeah, birth is so nuanced. Even for a mom who's had like 4 kids, 4 easy pregnancies, 4 births, her 5th pregnancy, it could be off the rails and she needs a cesarean. It's not always like cut black and dry, or sorry, not black and dry. It's not always black and white in regards of like, yes, we can put in preventatives. We can do everything we possibly can to have a low risk pregnancy, birth, and labor, but there are still risks there, and my job is to mitigate them, but things could still pop up. It's not always like picture perfect. I have attended mostly home births where things were kosher, things went fine. But I have seen, a cesarean birth now, and I've seen women in hospitals, not getting adequate care. And if they are, then then the birth, something happens in the birth. So, I mean, it's just really, it depends. It's like the best way to put it. That's why we have birth keepers, though. Understanding the autonomy aspect, the physiological process of birth is really important. And educating yourself on it if you plan on free birthing is important. You need to know all your risk factors, and you need to know your body the most. So
Okay, so when they asked, so you didn't dilate, so then they had to have a cesarean again. Is that what happened? Like what happened?
Yeah, yeah. So my cervix wasn't dilating, and I think we got to a 5, and then the heart deceleration started. Heart decelerations are determined through the fetal Dopplers that they have against the stomach, which we know is sometimes, if you're a mom and you've experienced it, you know they're easy to be off. And then when those stopped working because his heartbeat was, slowing down because there was so much going on in the uterus and it was squeezing him, um, we put an internal monitor in, even though I really didn't want to. But I was so deep in labor land and all I could see was his heartbeat dropping on the screen. So we did do an internal fetal monitoring, which is a tiny screw that gets clipped to the top of their head, and it's supposed to monitor their heart tones, and everything that's going on with them. But the minute we did that, it just kept tanking. Go figure, right? Like you're screwing a little metal clip in the top of a baby that's trying to come, out of the vaginal canal. Yes, sometimes it doesn't help and baby can become more distressed, and that's kind of what happened in my instance. So we saw 60 beats per minute for a good while until they really put the stress and pressure on me. I was dilated to a 5 centimeters for I want to say like 12 hours, which is a long time. And I was already day 3 of having my water broken, and they were worried about risk of infection and just all this stuff. And looking back, like, I don't know if I would have made it without their help, truthfully, because it was one of those births where there is the medical intervention that's needed, but the way everything just kind of played out, it could have been better. It could have been felt more safe. Um, but yeah, my cervix would not dilate. Before we transferred to the hospital, my doula did everything. She gave me cotton root. She gave me some teas to drink. We sat on the toilet backwards to open up the pelvis for like 2 or 3 hours at a time. And there's just only so much. My body is just one of those flukes. I'm assuming. I have no idea. I will tell you that my home environment, I did not feel safe in. And that's probably why all of it started. My biggest philosophy for my business, and when I tell my doula clients or the women I work with when they're free birthing, your birth space matters. Who you have in the room means everything. Every person adds an hour to your labor. So if your partner is not supportive, or if they're abusive, or your midwife sucks and you're sick of looking at her, your birth can absolutely go sideways, because like an animal, you're not feeling safe in your environment. You're not feeling contained. You're not feeling supported. That's kind of where I was at. That's why my birth went that way.
Okay. I gotta ask the stupid guy question because I'm watching
Okay.
Stephanie and she's picking up what you're laying down. But us men,
Yeah.
we don't have babies, so we don't understand that aspect. So when you're saying that your home environment isn't safe, like I mean, what are you speaking of specifically? And remember, you're
Oh,
talking to men who don't know this, right?
no, my my son's dad was just not a good partner to have in that space. So I felt very threatened. And my birth team even told me like that they didn't want him there. They were very explicit. They were like, "You're not going to birth your baby at home if he's there." And I was like,
What do you
"Well, I
mean?
love him."
I
Because
mean,
he was just very like verbally abusive at the time, and it just made me feel very inferior. And women can't open up when they're with someone that they're scared of, and that's pretty much what happened to me. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus here, but that's literally what happened. My midwife, my doula, acupuncturist,
Yeah.
they were like, "You need to get him out." I was like, "No, he's the dad." And they're like, "No, you're not going to birth your baby at home." And they were right. They were completely right.
but because we don't understand that experience, what was he doing? Like his the guys that are watching this, their minds are going to be like, what did he do? This is the way we think,
I
right?
can tell you right now, if you have to ask yourself that question, then you don't need to be worried about it, because there's men that are really evil out there, and they don't make their wives feel safe, and they don't provide the environment for them to, really blossom and have their babies at home. The main role in birth is oxytocin. It's our love hormone. And if your wife is deprived of that, or if your partner is deprived of that, like it's not going to go the way it needs to go. Providing a safe space, letting her feel supported, telling her she's loved, just sitting there and holding space for the contractions, putting counter pressure, holding her face as she's sobbing in labor. Those are things that can really metamorphosize and give a mom the best birthing experience. Any man who's listening to this and is asking himself, am I doing enough? I promise you are. If you have to ask yourself that, you more than likely are. The evil men out there that do not support their women in such a vulnerable aspect, they're not going to be asking themselves that question. They're not even going to really prepare themselves for what's to come,
But I mean, it's just, we just kind of wanted to know what at that point in time caused the midwives to say he needs to go, and the other women that were there, the people that were helping us.
Probably his energy. I would assume it's probably his energy, correct? Because I know I've been in relationships before where I didn't feel safe, and there's no birthing experience happening. It's I didn't feel safe to share my thoughts and views because of how the reaction would go when I would share my thoughts and views. And that's kind of what happens in the birthing experience when you are sharing what's happening to you, and they're just I don't care, or it's their energy. It's this very aggressive energy where they just kind of look at you like you're a nasty animal, like there's liquids coming out of you, you're sweating, you're crying, and they're not holding you.
It's what they're not creating the environment to help you. That for
it's usually happening before birth. It's been an ongoing part in your relationships that you probably were, aware of, but you loved him. I get it. You loved him. You're emotionally manipulated into staying with him whenever you try to leave or whatever else, or because you're pregnant, you thought, I need to save this for my family. But yeah, these partners are not supportive at all.
Well, I get that, and I understand that, but we're, as men, we see things differently. We see what things were done because we do things to help you to feel safe. That's what we do. We don't experience the same way, but we do things to help you guys to feel safe, to make your surroundings comfortable. And so for us, this is what it's just trying to try to put that picture so that men could sit down and say, because when you guys speak of your experience, you understand it, but we don't. And I'm just trying to help. I understand that you weren't feeling that way, but I was wondering what he was doing at the time that caused them to say, get out, to get rid of him. But it's helping a little bit more. Thank you.
Was it the way he was talking to you, Ariel? Was it the way he was maybe talking to you or dealing with the situations where the midwives maybe suggesting something that he was kind of going against? Is that, I think that's what Dale's trying to ask. Was there any energy?
No. He had tried to infiltrate my birth space by speaking ill of me to my doula. So there's already friction, and they saw him for who he was. It's not their first time working with, a single mom or a mom that's not being supported properly in the birth space. My doula was working for 30 years when I had met her. She has seen it all. She knew exactly the type of person he was, and tried to prepare me to make a decision to have him in the space. And looking back, I wholly and truthfully wish I had listened to her. And I'm not sure if that would have prevented anything. It's hard to say, but at the end of the day, they were completely right about, having that space cleared, having nobody in the house while I was laboring. It was just kind of like an accumulation over the 9 months of having the prenatal care. And obviously you have, between the doula, the midwife, and my acupuncturist, those were the three of my birth team. They had met him, I want to say 10 to 12 times. It's easy to kind of make an assessment as a healthcare professional and people that you work with very intimately and closely. So they just saw things for as they were. And then once he started trying to infiltrate the birth team, then they were like, okay, this is weird, and we're here for Ariel to make sure she's birthing this baby safely at home. And they try it. They put as much precaution tape as they could for me, but at the end of the day, I was so gung-ho on having the dad there because that was someone I thought I was going to be with forever, and I didn't want him to miss the birth of his child. And I thought I made a good decision based on the time. So, but I will say I do take everything that has happened with that birth specifically. And the single moms I work with now, or the moms that are in troubling relationships, or they feel some kind of way about the dad, or they're explicitly hiring me for the simple fact that they know the partner can't be present, I tell them off rip, do not lie to yourself about your birth space, because you're going to end up in a situation that you can't come back from and may take a very long time to heal from. So really think about if you want him there. Really ask yourself, and obviously I don't do this for every pregnancy. There are women that I work with who have amazing husbands who do more than I do in the birth space in terms of supporting physically or being able to talk to them. But there are families and women that I work with that are doing this alone. And I have taken my experiences and I tell them straight up, do not lie to yourself. Trust your mama jet. Like, you have that intuition for a reason. If you feel like this man is going to come in and cause trouble, or you're not going to feel safe, let's avoid that. Like, we can keep him out of the hospital room. We can keep him out of your house. That's why I'm there. I'm the advocate for this mom. And that's kind of what I've taken away from my personal experience with dealing with people in the birth space that are not meant to be there.
For me, like with both of my daughters when their moms were pregnant, I used to even talk to my daughters in their belly. They would actually, when I would do that, they would hear me walk in the room and they would start kicking as soon as they heard me talking, because I would do things like that. And you would think that these things would be reasonable things to do, because you're like, well, that's my kid, right? Like, this is the woman that I'm having a child with. But I guess some people are not necessarily the same way. But here's another stupid. What's birth tape? I mean, I don't know. What you said?
What?
You said
What's what?
birth. You said birth tape, or was he just saying space and I misheard it? I don't know.
I think I said birth space. So
okay, it sounded like tape. I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. Look, man, I'm not a woman, so right.
No, ask all the questions you need. No, you're good. You're good.
Birth and death are the most natural things a human can do. And look how much money it costs. Look how much you intervene with hospitals and things like that, when it should be in your own sacred space of delivering. I mean, it's supposed to be a ceremonial setting is what it's supposed to be. You're welcoming a new life onto this earthly dimensional plane. And we've completely industrialized it and turned it into a business where it's again, women are forced to lay on their backs. And that actually started from King Louis. I think it was in the 1500s or 1600s. His mistress was having a baby, and he wanted to view her be birthed, and that's where the back birthing started. But that's gravity pushing down. You're not working with gravity when you are laying on your back. You need to be in a squatting position or upright. I mean, there's so many different ways you can birth. Obviously, some people do like birthing their backs. They do feel better about it. But there's so many other positions that we are not taught when it comes to birthing in the proper way to have our bodies. And it's all good and comes down to the mother and how she feels comfortable. But no one's supposed to be pulling the baby out. No one's supposed to be touching the cord. The placenta realistically should be coming out. And then that should be, it should just fall off. If we had enough patience to wait long enough, that should be what's happening. But we've completely, again, intervened with every part of the birthing process. So I feel like that's what causes the postpartum depression. It causes, like you said, postpartum anxiety. There's a lot that goes into healing. It's physiological, but also physical healing too that happens to a mom after you have a baby, and we don't talk about that enough. A lot of moms deal with postpartum depression. Mine kind of came on later. Once I started staying home with my daughter, it came on 2 years after I had her, so it was delayed. And it is a very real thing where you're like, oh my gosh, like this actually does affect your mental health a lot without even realizing it.
We just had to take a short commercial break. You're going to hear from the pillow guy. We're going to take a short commercial break.
Got it.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. You know, I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupted this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillows only $14.98. Queens $18.98. King size only $1 more. Body pillows $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
All right, so if you need any MyPillow products, you can go to mypillow.com/Karis or call 800-845-2942. Use the promo code Karis. There's also stuff in the ticker. Get yourself good pillows, kitchen stuff, beds. You got all kinds of good stuff there. Go check it out. All right, so after just kind of going back to your experience there, Ariel. So after having this, two bad experiences with the birth of your children, what then, when did you decide to go, okay, I want to go in and start doing the home births, being the birth keeper and taking the midwife program, which you're currently taking right now, right?
Yes. I am in midwifery school. Yes. So I started off with being a doula apprentice for a bit.
What's that? What's a doula?
A doula is emotional support. So a midwife is a provider, and they adhere to state laws, legislators, or legislation. They have their own governing body that, just like obstetricians or medical doctors may have. They have places, they have things to report to. They're like they're a medical provider. They're a medical professional. A doula is more so educational, emotional, physical support. They are not there to make any diagnosis. They're not there to, do the suturing or do your vitals. They're specifically there to educate, inform you, make sure you understand informed consent, which means you are aware of everything that is going to be handed your way during your labor process. They're there for physical support. Sometimes in natural birth, we need a good hip squeeze to get through the contractions or someone to hold on to. That's where I came into play. I did a lot of free work for my first year. I want to say I could have made well over $20,000 and did not. I just did complete free births, not like free births, but I attended births for free. And I held space for mothers in their pregnancy, postpartum journeys. If a friend of mine needed advice, I'd, help them look it up. I would attend, a lot of my friends' births over that first year. And then I had realized, even, with my alternative medicine education at Everglades, I'm very science-minded in certain respects in regards to the body, like understanding anatomy and physiology, nutritional stuff, just overall, the biological aspect of it. Yeah. And I just really felt midwifery was more my calling, because I do really well emotionally and to support the mom. But at the end of the day, I really feel like I have the mindset to be a midwife, and there's such a deficit in them right now, as women are kind of in this era of reclaiming their bodies and stepping away from the medical industrial complex. So I was like, I could definitely do midwifery school. And I did my first year, and I had to step away because I had a lot of domestic stuff come up in my life. And it was just 2024. I just really need to focus on raising my children. So I stepped away, and I'm going back this upcoming season, this upcoming summer. So my journey started as a doula and just really learning and educating myself. I'm also getting my education, my childbirth education certification through Childbirth International, just to kind of keep myself busy right now. Because once I'm in midwifery school again, I will not be able to take on my own clients. I will be working with a preceptor again, and I'm just going to focus on doing birth education so that I'm not getting called to births every day, every second. But yeah, I definitely started off small. I started off doing a lot of free work. I started off just teaching and myself and learning from other midwives, other doulas, doing a lot of research, like really, really embedding myself into this realm that is the birth field. And then I got into a midwifery school, and midwifery school is very difficult. Especially for licensed midwifery, there's a difference between licensed midwives and certified midwives and nurse midwives. I would say licensed midwives, it's a step down from nurse midwifery, but you're still getting taught the same stuff, just a lot less extra steps. So I decided to go the licensure route, even though I told myself I wouldn't. I really wanted to do some underground work, some more underground work with helping moms who want a free birth and not be touched by any medical staff whatsoever. But with the current turnaround in our administration, it's going to be very hard to do that legally here soon. So I've just kind of decided to take up the license route again, and that's kind of where I'm headed right now.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
I hope I answered that correctly. Sometimes I'll just start going on a tangent, and I'm like, wait, what did he ask? I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I hope that, okay.
It'll get worse when you get older, don't worry. Right? I'm just teasing, right? I do that sometimes when I mean, you got to get off and you're like, oh, what was the question? Yeah, it happens.
I know. I find myself like having to support my brain with like lion's mane mushroom and some like methylated some methylfolate and just like a bunch of different minerals and herbs, because I'm definitely feeling the weight of like sleep exhaustion from this work and also having kids. And I mean, I'm on the upswing of 30, so I just, taking care of my brain is like so important in this field, because you're going to constantly run into burnout. So
yeah. You have ADHD, just out of curiosity?
What was that?
Do you have ADHD?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Hey, we call it neurodivergent. So we are, because I'm neurodivergent. So you just, you have all these thoughts, and all of a sudden your mind starts going.
I'll tell you right now, don't eat cheese. It is so bad for your brain. When you have ADHD, I'm telling you right.
Cheap cheese right before
I have ADHD, and I listened to a guy. He talked about it. I was at work. This was years ago, and he said that, and I was like, "What?" So I tried it. I noticed it when I would eat it, my brain would start going sideways. I was just like,
really?
"Yes."
It's probably the dopamine hit.
Yes, and it's because of the way that it breaks down into like the casein in the cheese kind of breaks down into like sort of an opioid substance when you eat it, and it when you have ADHD, it's worse. Like, it's bad. I was just like, and I love cheese, and it was just like,
that's hard. I just scarfed down some goat cheese or sheep cheese before I got on too. So let's hope there's no flare-ups.
it helped my concentration like hugely, right? And I was just like, well,
yeah.
When you get older, your body doesn't respond the same way, right? So, I mean, once I hit 40, it was just like everything hurt. Every dumb thing I did in my life caught up to me all at once.
See, that happened to me at 30. I mean, I'm 33 right now, but I feel like the last 2 years, everything, I got to replay my entire life and how my body works, and just like all this education about like our body, nutrition, and like learning about it and stuff has like completely changed the way I live, where it's like there are ways to be more connected to your mind and body and spirit when you do the work, and to researching herbs like you say you're taking lion's mane, and what else are you using, Ariel?
Methylfolate, because I have the MTHFR gene mutation, which also coincides with ADHD. So
I've
So,
noticed CBD helps a lot with mine. Like, I'm a cannabis mom, and it's honestly, as a mom, it's helped me with my patients, with homeschooling, everything. And even when I was in school, I remember, even though it was illegal, right, I snuck off, skipped a field trip, came back, and I was really bad at chemistry because I had horrible ADHD in high school. I came back stoned, and maybe, you know what I mean? I came back, and I was the only one who finished the problem, the only one who got it right. And I was like, this actually really helps with my ADHD. You know, because I was on Adderall for 10 years, and that completely made me irritable. It caused a lot of health issues, high blood pressure, all these issues. And so once I switched over to cannabis, I'm like, this is actually medicine. So I've been researching it. I've been researching the science behind it, all of it. There's lots of medical studies that are coming out that help, the things it helps with. So I know people are it's a very controversial topic when it comes to cannabis, but it has been very helpful with a lot of moms, especially with postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, healing from the trauma of birth and all of that. It's been very helpful.
so just wanted to touch on a question here. I guess I have to lean into the mic because, but you mentioned that I saw in your pro, you said that you were atheist, but went now to Christianity. Did something to do with this? Was that something to do with your experience, or did that happen at a different time?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, you.
Oh, sorry. Okay. My religious journey was kind of all over the place. I was born Baptist, and I'm in Florida, so very Southern Baptist. And I just honestly, I did not have the structure I needed as a child. I considered myself like a spiritual orphan because my mom made it so my dad wasn't around, and then she was not a very fit mom to raise me. So emotionally, just was not raised in the right space. And then when I found out I was pregnant when I was 19, I kind of had this immediate switch in my spirit. I don't know how to describe it truthfully. I had lived a very atheist lifestyle before. As a teenager, I had a struggling drug addiction, and people are so shocked to find that out. But like I didn't have the right space to grow in as a child, so I was led very astray. And me and my high school boyfriend found out we were expecting when I was 19, and I gave birth at 20. And I had immediately had this very spiritual shift where a lot of like my maternal instincts started taking over, and I started seeing more of a higher purpose and staying and being a mother and just being a present mother. And it was hard finding my faith. And it's so funny because it was glaring right at me. Like Christianity has always been it's like weaved into the fabric of my being. My grandma was very Baptist. My great grandmother was Catholic. Like they have very deep roots in their church. And the first couple of years, of my daughter's life, I had like traveled all over the world. I was trying to figure out my faith, my religion. I went to Thailand to go see the the temples there and see if I was into Buddhism. I like looked into Hinduism. And then I think after my 25th birthday, when I was pregnant with my son, that's when I was like, okay, I started seeing scripture more and started really opening my heart more to Christ and listening to my grandma, preach to me. And I was dating the man I had my son with was of Jewish faith. So that's kind of where those worlds collided a lot in my pregnancy. Was like I had saw things a little differently and religious wise, but I was baptized in April of 2024 by my church and my pastor here in Orlando, Florida. Or not here in Orlando. I was baptized in Bethune Beach. And I have just been an avid church attender for over a year now. There's no other way to describe it as like there was a calling and I picked it up and I've just been on the phone with God since. That's the only way to put it. I don't know if it was my second pregnancy or what, but I don't know if it was like, my friends the shift of friends in my social circle started, they started becoming Christian, or I started becoming friends with more Christian women. And it's hard to ignore when God is constantly giving you signs. And I was finding myself in conversations with God and praying. So now I'm actually a volunteer at my church. I teach the second grade, when I can go, if I'm not at work or, whenever I have the space, I teach the second graders there. And I've just been an active volunteer since. It's definitely been a journey, and I have, it hasn't been perfect by any means, but redemption is so powerful. And I did not lead a life of God prior, and it feels really nice to know my purpose and to know that my calling is so integrated. Like my professional calling into midwifery can be so integrated with the calling of creation, and showing mothers how they can lead through birth, through scripture, and really grounding themselves with God. I think it's so important. So it's been a roller coaster, but I made it out, and I'm here, and I'm not a preacher, I'm not a pastor, I am just a follower of Jesus Christ that really has a deep devotion and moral compass and responsibility to care for mothers who are straddling the realms of reality and labor. So I like to integrate the two as I can.
So it's safe to say that because of your experience of having things go badly, you wanted to go and help other people in a similar situation.
Isn't that all of us though? Like, we go through something very trivial and terrible, and then you come out of it and you're like, I don't want anyone else to go through that. That's kind of the philosophy I've been living with, truthfully.
Well, that's a reasonable response. Some people go the other way, unfortunately, but it's good that you made a good choice to go ahead and help other people, which is what we should do. I mean, right? I mean,
that's what Christ calls us to do.
Yes. And so, our government definitely doesn't do that anymore. Well, for a long time didn't do it, but
yeah.
So
there's something very nefarious there, but yes.
Yeah, we all can agree that. So what?
Yeah.
Kind of looking now that because we're running up on time, I just want to kind of get, where do you want to go now? What do you want to say to people? What is your kind of message that you want to put out to people about what you're doing, and how can people help you? What do you want to say to people about what you're doing? Right? How can they reach you if they want to get inquiries about, I want to do a natural birth at home? How do they come in contact with you?
Definitely my Twitter and Instagram account right now. My website was supposed to be launched April 1st, but I have had a very busy first 7 days of April, just nonstop moving. And, I have my hands in a few different projects right now, but through my Twitter, there's a Calendly link in my bio, and that is where you can primarily contact me. I do service pretty much all of Central Florida right now. So that includes Orange County, Volusia, Seminole, Hillsborough, Polk, pretty much all the way up from Jacksonville or St. Augustine-ish down to Clearwater, down to Cocoa Beach, and everything in between. I am a traveling doula, and I'm not taking any free birth, midwifery, none of that right now personally, just because school starts in September. But I will be offering birth education classes when September comes. So if you're a new mom, or if you're a mom who hasn't had a baby in a while, or if you really just feel like you need the extra knowledge, I'm definitely reachable through Twitter or Instagram. I will have my website up at the end of the month. I want to say before the 25th. So just bear with me until then. I'm still reachable through my other social medias. But again, I'm just going to repeat my philosophy here. Where you birth and where you feel comfortable matters. If you are used to allopathic standards and you feel like you would freak out if you were at home birthing, then by all means, birth in a hospital. Do what your heart tells you to do, because at the end of the day, if you don't listen to your mother intuition, if you don't listen to yourself, you don't listen to what your body is responding to in your current environment and where you want to birth, it's not going to go how you feel it's going to go. It could end in terms that you don't want them to. Always just trust your gut. Don't lie to yourself about who you want in your birth space. Don't lie to yourself about where you want to birth. having an open conversation between you and your husband is super important. You know, God willing, he's there, or if he is that supportive, you know, making sure you have a sound birth team and a spiritually sound birth team that aligns with your ethics and values is imperative for your labor and delivery. So that's what I'm leaving off at. So
All right. Thank you for coming. And I mean, for people to go and support, obviously, if you need to have the birthing stuff, us men, we can't, we won't be calling, but I'm sure our women will. So have that conversation if you need to. I'll close here with a prayer before we go. All right. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy. We thank you for the work that Ariel is doing and her calling to help others after having a bad experience, and continue to bless her in her work and others like her, and help the men and women to come together to rebuild our families, our churches, our community, and our nation, that we can have some sensibility and not have to deal with this wickedness in this world anymore, is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. And
in Jesus' name, thank you so much, Dale. It was a pleasure to meet you.
yes, you too, and thank you for coming. And for everybody,
Yeah, you as well, Stephanie. I wish you an abundance of luck on your birth. If you have any questions, I can definitely help in any way, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to speak to both of y'all. Have a blessed day.
all right, you too. We'll see you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.